Hello, crafty friends. Welcome. In this video, I'm going to be creating 5 different sizes of cards and creating accompanying envelopes to fit them. I'll be featuring a collection of crafty goodies called Just Sayin, and I'll show you these before we get into the projects. This first stamp set is called Speech Bubble Sentiments. These are great for creating cards, but if you're into scrapbooking, I think they would go hand in hand with that. I love the sentiment that says, heck yes, and so much happy. Next up, I have some really cute speech bubbles. I don't have anything like this in my set or in my stash. It's simply called Speech Bubbles, and you get 14 dies. There are 7 different shapes of speech bubbles, and then they have the faux stitching around them. They come with an interior die, so you can have the speech bubble be like red and then cut out the inner die with white so that your sentiment really shows up. But there's a lot that you can do with these fun dies. They're the perfect size for card crafters. But of course, again, if you are a scrapbooker, these would be fun to put above one of your pictures and then stamp a sentiment in there. So here they all are on my mat so that you can see the different cute shapes of these. And then next I have a set called Punctuation and Icons. There are 17 dies in this set. I'll lay these out on my mat as well so you can see all of the different dies you can create, or die cuts that you can create with these. I especially like the exclamation mark and the question mark. I liked the flowers in this set too. And then you get some cute dies that can create tickets. And you get brackets. It's just a very fun set. You even get hearts and arrows. There are a lot more products in this collection, but I'm just showing you a few that I picked out. And another one that I really love is called Pieced Heart. You get an outline for the heart, and then the inner piece you can use to cut out little slivers of the heart and then put them back together using pattern paper or different colors of cardstock or whatever you want. And last, I have this beautiful collection of pattern paper. This is 6 by 6, and it is called Just Sayin. These are so bright and fun. I love the florals. You get speech bubbles, stripes. They're one-sided, and they're very lightweight. But you get lots of different patterns, one of each. Got some cut-aparts. I had a lot of fun creating cards with this pattern paper. You can also get this in a 12 by 12 or your scrapbooks if you want. But there are 24 designs, and it is acid-free and lignin-free, which prevents your work from discoloring or breaking down. This collection also includes chipboard stickers and die cuts that you can just stick on your work if you don't enjoy die cutting or stamping. So let's get into the first project. And for this project, I'm reaching for the pieced heart. So once you cut out the slivers in your pieced heart, you're going to have to put it back together. And I wanted to try to emboss the pieced heart with a very thin piece of paper so that I would know exactly where the pieces go. It's not that difficult to put together, so you do not have to do this part. But this will emboss the lines into the paper so you know where each and every piece will go. I'm using this gorgeous piece of floral pattern paper on my card, and this card is a 5-inch square card. I cut out all of my pieces with some heavyweight cardstock for my first project. And then I can go ahead and put this heart back together. I'm using some liquid glue to do this so I can wiggle the pieces into place. But I pulled the color scheme from this piece of floral pattern paper. So I found cardstock that matched it very closely. And I'm using 5 different colors of cardstock. Spellbinders has recently come out with an all-new collection of some gorgeous colors of cardstock, but this is from their old collection, the Cardstock Essential. I think they have a little bit left of this cardstock on their shop. But after it is sold out, they're not going to be restocking this cardstock. I'm gluing down the heart on a jaunty angle, and it does stick out from the card base. But the beauty of being able to create your own envelopes is that you can create an envelope that will accommodate this, that will be big enough for this card. I'll use the stamp set called Speech Bubbles to stamp out a sentiment that says Happy Day. This is going to be a birthday card. And then I created a bunch of flowers using the punctuation and icons set. I'm going to cluster them just below the sentiment in the corner of this card. Once I have those glued in place, I'm going to add a few gems. I'm looking for places that they'll really show up on this card. And here is a close-up look at the first project. I used some scrap paper on the inside. And now let's create an envelope for this square card. I've had this 1-2-3 punch board tool in my stash for years, and I love this thing. On the inside, it shows you the different sizes of envelopes you can create. My card ended up being 5.5 by 5 because of the heart hanging off of the edge of it. So I'm going to create an envelope that is 5 by 6. So the chart tells me that I need a 9-inch piece of square paper. The chart tells me to score it at 4 1/8 inch. And then you can punch it before or after. You punch it each time you turn it. I'll turn it counterclockwise, and then all you have to do is line up your scored line with the groove on the board. You don't have to worry about the 4 1/8 inch after that. So again, I'm going to turn it counterclockwise, make sure the groove kind of sits inside of the groove on the board, punch it, and then score it again. So they're very easy to make. And then I have my last punch here, just trying to line it up in the groove, punch it, and then score it in groove A. This is a fabulous little tool, and of course it comes with all of the instructions. You can round the corners to your envelopes if you want by punching each side at the top of the board. And then all you have to do is fold this. It comes with a scoring tool, and I'll just put this back in the board. And then I'll fold this. I like to use another bone folder to smooth this down flat. And then you can use whatever kind of adhesive you'd like. I'm going to use some tape runner to put this envelope together. You can also add a little bit of liquid glue if you're using a heavier weight cardstock, because sometimes the heavyweight cardstock tends to want to pop up. For the top fold, I'm just going to use some double-sided adhesive. And I'm going to leave the backing on this until I'm ready to use the envelope. And now you have the perfect sized envelope for your card. Just got to make sure I don't catch my flowers on the envelope as I'm putting it in. And the envelope's not going to be too tight. It does give you a little bit of wiggle room. For my next project, I'm going for these adorable speech bubbles. I cut them out with different colors of cardstock. And then the lining for the inside, I used white. I had to use this beautiful piece of striped pattern paper for the outside of my card. I'll glue my speech bubbles in place, and I'm creating a 6-inch by 3-inch mini slimline card for this project. I didn't know exactly yet what I wanted to stamp inside the speech bubbles. I'll be using the You're Amazing sentiment from the Speech Bubbles sentiment set. But then I'm going to pull in 2 birthday sentiments from my stash. I'll stamp them out using some black ink. This is my favorite black ink. This is VersaFine Onyx Black. I do like to stamp it out a few times, although you'll only see one stamping here. I'm also going to use 2 other stamps from this set to put around my speech bubbles, and I'll just stamp them out with more black ink. And then this card is done. I'm going to create one more mini slimline cards, the same size as the last one. I was having so much fun with the pattern paper. So I'm using this grid green pattern paper, and I'll put a stripe of polka dots down the side. I have more speech bubbles that I cut out. This time I'm using some craft cardstock on the inside of the speech bubbles. And again, I'm going to create another birthday card because my stash is in need of some more birthday cards just to have ready to go. The stamp I'm using from the Speech Bubbles Sentiments will say "So Much Happy." And then the other 2 stamps, again, come from stamps that I have in my stash. To decorate the outside of this card, I'm going to use the Punctuation and Icons dies. And I cut out an arrow and some hearts and some stars. And I'm just gluing these all around the speech bubbles. The color scheme of my 2 mini slimline cards will be great for masculine birthday cards. I'll be happy to have these in my stash. Here's a close-up of my 3rd card. And now to make some envelopes for these mini slimlines. I have another envelope creator in my stash. However, I don't use this one. I'll show you how I create my slimline cards. But with this one, you can only make one size of slimline and one size of mini slimline. So you use this cutting tool to cut off the edges. And then you'll score the sides of the envelope. It comes with a nice scoring tool. You can also create your card bases with this tool. So I'm going to score the side of the envelope and then the top of the envelope. This is the flap that folds down. Then you're going to flip it over completely and do the same thing. So again, I'll cut off the corner and the edge. And then I will score it. Just have to make sure I line it up to the edge. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side of this paper. This mini slimline will measure 7 inches by 6 inches. And it's just a little bit too bulky for my 3 by 6 inch cards that I like to create. I'll speed this up just a little bit. I think you get the idea. And one thing I don't like about this tool is it creates kind of rough edges where you cut it out. You can see it's doesn't look clean. But again, these are going to be folded over, so it's not going to be a big deal. But it's just the size that I can't get past. It's just a little bit too big. Let me show you by holding up my card. It's too wide. So what I have done is I've created my own pattern. Here's my orange pattern, and I've put down all of the measurements to this. If you like to create 3 by 6 inch mini slimlines, you're going to start out with a piece of cardstock that is 7.5 by 8 3/4. And again, I use very lightweight cardstock for this. This is very easy to do. Now I'm going to score the sides 2 inches off each side, or 2-inch score on each side. And then I'm going to score the top and the bottom. And these have different measurements. So we'll start with the top flap to this envelope. And this I'm going to score at 1 1/4. I love this Spellbinders cutting tool because it does have a scoring tool on this as well. So I'll score it at 1 1/4. And then for the smaller flap, I'm going to score this at 3/4 of an inch. And this will make the perfect size envelope for your mini slimline card if you create it at 3 by 6 inch. This pattern is really handy to have on hand, and I just store it in with my envelope makers. Next, I'll cut off the 4 corners. I'm just following the lines of my scoring to do this, so it's very easy. And then I'm going to slope the sides of my envelope. I'll pull out my ruler, and I'm going to just trim off 1/4 of an inch on all of these sides. You don't have to do this part if you don't want to, but I just like them to have a little bit of slope and shape to them. I'll do this on all of the edges. I'll use my scissors again to trim those sides off. And then you'll have a piece of paper that looks like this, and you can simply fold along the scored lines and glue those in place. So the smaller flap is the bottom of the envelope. I'm going to use more dot liner to put this together. I kind of went over the edge there, so I'm just kind of pulling the dot liner back. Let me add a little bit more tape there, and then I'll add some tape to the bottom. I will eventually be putting another piece of double-sided adhesive at the top for when I'm ready to use this envelope. Here it is. Very simple, but I love using the colored cardstock. Then your cards just slip in easily. And I went ahead and created an envelope for each of my mini slimlines. Let's move on to another card project. I loved this little stamp that looks like a piece of college ruled lined paper. So I'm going to stamp it out with some gray inks. I want it to be a little more soft than using the black ink. And I want the paper to be a little bit longer. So I'm using the side of my Misty. I'm just going to pull the cardstock up, and it will be perfectly aligned. And I'm going to stamp this just at the bottom of the first stamping. Just trying to eyeball it here. I'll stamp it out again with gray ink. And now I have a rectangular stamping instead of a square one. And I'll use a rectangular die to cut this out, and it's going to have some white borders around the stamping. This card is going to be a little bit unusual. The size is a bit smaller than an A2 sized card, which is 5.5 by 4 1/4. This one is actually going to be 3.5 by 5. I'm using some blue cardstock to mat this. I chose a few more pieces of the pattern paper. I'll glue these together. And then I'm going to attach them to my white card base. I'm attaching a piece of scrap cardstock and scrap pattern paper so that when I attach this piece here, it'll be the same height as the pattern paper and cardstock on the left. On the inside of my card, I'm going to attach a piece of pink cardstock at the top. And I'm doing this because I cut off the corners on the front of the card, so you'll be able to see this pink cardstock from the front of the card. I'll add a stripe of blue at the bottom. And then you can see the multicolors from the outside of the card. Let me show you what this is going to look like. kind of different. I'll pop this in my mini MISTI and stamp out some sentiments. This is going to say, hello, you're amazing, and just saying. Then in between those three sentiments, I'm going to attach some flowers. This is a card designed to go into one of my kids' backpacks. I'm going to have to make another one so I could give them both one. These kinds of cards are really fun to put in your kids' backpacks to let them know that you think they're doing a wonderful job. I'll probably add a gift card inside this card as well. This would also be a great card to give to a teacher. Here is a close-up of the finished card. And once again, the inside of the card. To make an envelope for this one, I'm using another square piece of the scrapbook paper. I used the card size chart to figure out how big I want this card to be. And then I'm just doing the same thing by rotating it counterclockwise, punching and scoring. This card will measure, when it's all done, about 4.5 by 5.5, and it will accommodate my card perfectly. So I don't always create my own envelopes for my cards, but when I need an odd-sized envelope, this 1-2-3 punch board really comes in handy. On to the last card. I'm using more of the beautiful pattern paper, and I'm going to attach it to a piece of Dune cardstock. I already cut out my heart slivers with another piece of pattern paper, but I'm going to be adding some more Dune cardstock in between the pattern paper. I'm going to blend on a little bit of the Picked Raspberry Distress Oxide inks for the Dune cardstock. I backed it with another piece of Dune cardstock, and then this card is a regular 5.5 by 4.25 inch card, and this time I don't want the heart hanging off the side. I'm going to cut the heart down. I'll attach it to the front of the card using some tape runner. I'll line it up to the side. We'll have just a little bit hanging off on the left side, but this won't affect my A2 sized envelope, which I'm going to create next. So you can create your A2 sized envelopes with this 1-2-3 punch board. I stamped out the sentiment that says happy birthday right on the heart. And then this next sentiment that I'm putting under it says, may your birthday be as delightful as you. Added a few pink enamel dots. Here's a close-up look at the card. So let's create just a regular A2 sized card with the envelope. This will be great if you want a particular color of envelope for your card that you may not have in your stash. So I'm going to create a pretty teal envelope to match this card. And again, I'm just doing the same thing. I cut it into a square and scoring it according to the guide on the inside of the board. Now I can fold in the edges and tape it together. So I will have all of the products that I used to create these cards and envelopes listed in the description box if you're interested in checking them out. Let's make sure the card fits in the envelope, and you do get a little bit of wiggle room. But it's really fun to create your own envelopes for your cards, and the next step would be to decorate these envelopes. Thanks for watching, my crafty friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you are going to try creating your own envelopes to coordinate with your cards. I hope you make the time to sit down and create some cards and envelopes of your own. Bye!